jacket, gloves, earrings, hair. Out of drag, I'm a big old black man. That's the last thing they would expect for me to be with Christopher.
Well, I definitely think Latrice is sexy, but I don't have sex with her. So I have definitely tried to let Tim know how sexy he is and that we're here for that.
We want to extend a huge thank you to our partners Dipsy and Dame for supporting us in bringing this episode of What's Underneath Couples to life.
Dipsy is an amazing app where storytelling meets sexual wellness so that you can find more joy and confidence in and out of the bedroom.
Dame is a leading sexual wellness company creating game-changing pleasure products for people with vulvas.
So can you talk about when you first met?
I went to see Latrice's show in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2012. I had seen Latrice on RuPaul's Drag Race, and it felt like Latrice motherfucking Royale had already taken over the universe. And somehow or another, I managed to snatch her attention that night. She started flirting like drag queens do, and I didn't really think that much about it and was just kind of sassy back. She's always said I wasn't scared.
Was not scared at all. Like anybody that can keep up with me on the sass radar, then I'm very intrigued. I was like, oh, you trying to be grown? He's like, I am grown. You didn't ask me. I was like, oh, okay. All right. And then I dropped my Sharpie and he had to bend over and pick it up.
And that was all she wrote.
Baby. Cake, honey.
Yeah, I got invited back to the hotel room.
And then wound up staying up all night just talking. Like, I knew I was in trouble.
You were so nervous to like drag and get a shower.
Because that was the first thing that has to happen.
Because you're not dating Latrice. I wasn't even trying to date her at that point. I talk about Latrice and Tim. I'm married to one and I work for the other one. So they're both relevant.
I felt instantly that this person was already different.
Well, I mean, we all fantasize about our famous boyfriend or whatever, right? Like we all like Channing Tatum or like whoever it is, right? But it never occurred to me that I would get her attention, that we'd be sitting here almost a decade later.
But like she was your Channing Tatum?
It turned out that this is she's my Channing Tatum.
What would be the first thing you'd want to take off?
Oh, the jacket, yeah.
Okay.
I have a little reveal too. The Royales have reveals, honey. I don't know what they told you, but
Yes.
So can you talk about the assumptions that people make about you as a couple?
Oh, they don't. They assume that we're not together. We're always overlooked at airports as a couple. Like, they definitely assume, number one, that we're not together or that we're not in first class.
Well, if we are seated next to each other, there are a lot of times that the airline staff will assume that I'm trying to move away from him because of his size, or we will be asked by usually a late middle-aged heterosexual white couple that wants to sit together, and they don't realize that we are also trying to accomplish the same goal.
The fact that, I mean, out of drag, I'm a big old black man. That's the last thing they would expect for me to be with Christopher.
But that's kind of the inverse of how the gay community usually works. A lot of couples that we know are accused of twinning. You know, they say dogs look like their owners, but husbands look the same.
Yeah, look the same.
Really. Within the gay community, I think that people don't even know what assumptions to make about our relationship. Because my partner defies so many gender roles, I think that a lot of people see us as so outside of the box that they don't know what assumptions to make. And it gives us sort of an opportunity to write a new script.
Going back to the first night together, can you go back to that night and what you talked about?
He did admit, he said, you know, I'm at an unfair advantage because I feel like I know more information about you than you do about me. So I Googled him.
In front of me. It was clear to him pretty quickly that there was baggage and there was a story. I was in bumfuck East Tennessee, graduated high school with like 85 people, and I stood out like a sore thumb. I knew I needed to get out. When a Southern boy moves to New York City talking like this, wanting to make music by Stephen Sondheim and Adam Guettel, I was 23 years old. They just wanted to fuck me. I didn't feel valued as a person at all. When I moved back from Tennessee with my tail tucked between my legs after trying to make it in the Big Apple, I didn't feel like I had a future or a community. In Tennessee at that time, the gay community was still very polo shirt, football game, khaki short, cargos. I came back in booty shorts and a halter top ready to, hey! And they were not about that life yet.
But the thing of it is like, when he was revealing parts of his past and his struggles, I was like, oh, baby, we can get through this. This ain't nothing. You know what I mean? If this is what you got, we okay.
I would bring my biggest dramas, and it just didn't feel like a big deal to me.
It didn't faze me.
And everyone else was telling me that my energy was too much, that I was too demanding.
But it's not because he's too much. He's too much because you're too much.
You had the whole world, it seemed like, available to you at that time. You could have had your pick of any experience that you wanted. So to stand out amongst all of that, it really just let me know, oh, of course you stood out in Harrogate, Tennessee. Of course you stood out in Knoxville. You even stood out in New York, and now you stand out to Latrice Royale. I kind of quit fighting my path. I realized, oh no, you're gonna continue to stick out. So what are you gonna do with that?
I don't ever want him to ever feel less than. I wanted him to rise to his potential. Little did I know that he was gonna be the one to help elevate me and see my full potential.
So what would you say has been your biggest struggle now or in the past that you've worked on in your relationship, like with each other?
One of the important dynamics of our relationship is me knowing how and when he's available, emotionally or physically even. Like, I have to be very able and willing to acknowledge his lack of availability. We were in the middle of planning our wedding, and he went to film All Stars 4 for an entire month that I couldn't even speak to him. So to watch him meet 150 people in a row 5 nights a week, that's an emotional drain that you can't explain to a person that doesn't do it. I can want and need a lot from my emotional partner, but I also have to be able to stand on my own.
It wasn't until the pandemic happened that we had to reintroduce ourselves to each other. Couple that with cabin fever and all the stresses and all the traumas and triggers that were going on in the world with the George Floyd. And on top of that, there's this thing out there trying to kill us called COVID. Normally, I can work my shit out when I'm out on the road, and he can work his shit out when I'm out on the road. you know?
And the momentum of being on the road, I think, for both of us sort of distracts from the stuff that you need to deal with.
But I will tell you this, when it got too much, we went to our basics and just prayed together. And so we sat there and held each other, and this man held me as I boo-hoo and sobbed when the George Floyd thing was happening, because I was just so angry and so hurt at what I was watching being demonstrated.
And here we are, I'm laying to one of the most powerful, like physically big, but spiritually big in every way, people that I know, who is laying in bed feeling completely just helpless. And I'm a person that would want to naturally be inclined to be out in the streets and show that form of activism. All I see in my husband is a moving target. And so all I know to do is just lay in bed with him, because please don't go get killed.
I wanted to encourage him in his career path as much as he uplifted and supported me in mine.
We were talking about money and how we were going to work together and make this work, because I definitely feel like I'm not bringing enough to the table at times, financially anyway. He just looked at me and said, babe, if I got, we got.
Period.
I came to an understanding that the more I can amplify this person's voice and career and path, the better off we all would be.
We all would be.
Your commitment is so beautiful, your understanding, your emotional intelligence with each other, all of this. Were there role models for this in your past?
No, let me tell you. No, girl, no. My parents were divorced or separated when I was 4, 5.
My parents were married at 18, they had me at 20, and they were divorced by 23.
Couple that with the fact that my dad was abusive and a drug user and an alcoholic and all these things. It was a struggle. I didn't have that ideal of what a perfect or a good marriage was. And I became okay with the fact that I was never going to be married until we had some trauma. We had Pulse nightclub massacre happen. And we lost a very, very good friend during that time. We had people and friends that were there and working in the club that night.
That had been messaging me from the club.
Just from the club. It became very tense and real that our community has been attacked.
And as I was waiting on him to get off the plane, I did learn that our friend Eddie Sotomayor had been killed at the site. There's just no way to explain, of all the people that we had known, how Eddie was particularly blessing of this relationship.
The way he died was the way that he lived, because he was helping others get out and put his life on the line before all else. And he died helping people. We're not promised tomorrow. Anything could happen. In the blink of an eye, it could be all over. And then at that point, where do you go? Are you prepared for that? And we weren't. We were scheduled to be in Seattle for Pride. I had spoke with the promoter and our friend. I said, I have got engagement rings and I want to propose to Christopher. The staff knew, everyone was behind me.
Everyone but me.
I had got done with my number, and I asked Christopher to come up on stage, and
the queen got on one knee.
I got on my knee.
I had to stand there just quiet and still enough to let the thing happen.
I knew that he was gonna say yes, and he did.
When do you feel the most like sexy with each other?
I struggle with the term sexy. I always have. When I started doing drag, I was losing my male persona. Back then, it wasn't cool to be a drag queen. Like, if you were trying to meet a guy and they found out you did drag or you cross-dressed or something like that, it was a deal breaker.
No fats, no femmes.
No fats, no femmes. And I was both. So talk about feeling left out. I never felt sexy. I never thought I was sexy. I was not that.
But then watch this bitch move on stage. Anybody can shake all this and move it around. Like, you gonna know what you're doing. Like, I don't know how they missed that part. I definitely think Latrice is sexy, but I don't have sex with her. So, do you know what I mean?
Can't get through all this.
So, like, I don't want to negate any of the sexiness of Latrice, but it's as drawn to it as I am, like, sexually, that's not where we're at. One of the first things he said to me was, I'm gonna need you to not call me girl. It let me know very early on that there was a man underneath all this creating this that wanted and needed to be seen. And so I have definitely tried to let Tim know how sexy he is and that we're here for that.
What would be next for you?
I can take out my tits.
Wait, hold on.
Don't you wish you could do that sometimes? Just leave them on the table?
Yeah.
I know y'all do. I know.
I don't have that issue. And I'm happy that I don't.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's the magic right there.
Does intimacy with each other like differ from anything you've experienced before? Or?
Completely. It's also just so different over time. Like, then this person sees you throw up and then they know what you smell like when you come out of the toilet. Intimacy looks a little different than just like sex. What we're doing with our lives is making sure that we've got somebody to wipe our ass when we're old.
It's being vulnerable. It's allowing yourself to be seen in your most raw state. Knowing that you're not being judged, that you're being loved every step of the way. That's magical intimacy to me as well. Yep.
Wow.
Black don't crack unless you smoke it.
When does each of you find the other one the most beautiful?
When we're laying in bed and I can just look over at him, those moments are the best. Just to hold his hand and be able to look at him and,
He has this way of finding the exact right time to surprise me with something. You expect the world famous drag queen to just be the self-absorbed egomaniac, and then he'll come through and do something ridiculously sweet.
All right, so I guess everything
I never
else.
took my socks off.
All right, I'll go do this and come back.
Bye.
You can do your pants too.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah? I usually charge extra for that, but here you go. I don't know what to do with them now.
Okay, so ultimate push here. This is very,
When do you feel you're most vulnerable?
right now. This is it. Now, you know, I've been on Drag Race and they see me in my undressed stages, but never would I let them capture me in just my underwear. I can't very well be a person who's this role model of self-confidence and being body positive if I'm the one over here cringing at myself in the corner. Am I a work in progress? Absolutely 100%. Am I where I want to be? Not at all. But I am working on it. It's something about getting old too. I don't give a shit. I'm not really trying to like make you feel good about me in your life. You know what I mean? That's not what my goal is. When you die and you're not no longer on this earth plane, what are they going to say about you? Are they going to even know you were here? Did you have an impact on the world? And those are the questions and guidelines in which I strive and live by. Can I get an amen? Okay.
Okay, so last question. Why in this relationship, why is it a good place to be?
I'm committed and invested in this human. We have still so much potential and there's so much love there, and that's not fading. So.
And we're not dead or blind. We see other people. We know that they exist. We find them beautiful and sexy and all those things. But I don't ever have to question this person's heart. I don't have to worry that when he's on the road, he's going to find somebody better. That's not what he's looking for. And I hope I can just live up to it.
So beautiful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. It was absolutely magnificent.
Thank you.
Mag-
I want to gush at you for an hour and a half. But I feel like we just did.
It's beyond magic. You said magic, but it was magnificently magical.
We want to extend a huge thank you to our partners Dipsy and Dame for supporting us in bringing this episode of What's Underneath couples to life.
As women and people with vaginas, you've probably been taught a few things about sex that aren't serving you. Looking back in my early 20s, there were so many of my early sexual experiences where I was putting my partner's needs above my own and where my partner was pressuring me and I didn't have the self-worth or the knowledge of how to say no. All 500 plus Dipsy stories are consensual, feminist, sex-positive original productions.
Lily, did you know that women are 4 times more likely in the last year to say that they do not enjoy sex?
Than men.
Yes.
I didn't know the statistic, but I'm not surprised at all. That's where our incredible partner Dame comes in. Dame is a leading sexual wellness company creating absolutely beautiful pleasure products for people with vulvas to help bring your solo or coupled play to the next level.
If you're interested in getting Dame today, use code StyleLikeU to get 15% off your first order.
Try a 30-day free trial for Dipsy when you subscribe with code StyleLikeU today.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of What's Underneath with Christopher and Latrice.
For more interviews like this one,
Subscribe to Style Like You.
And head over to our Patreon to see the extended 1-hour interview.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yay!